Major sponsors of the Winter Olympic Games all have a lot at stake. Each had to pay up to about $100 million to sponsor a full winter and Olympic cycle. And several factors have been casting a shadow over the Games, from terrorism fears to anger over the country's anti-gay laws to concerns that Sochi is just not quite ready for prime time. So for more on what this could mean for sponsors and what they should be doing, we're joined by Jonathan Bernstein, president of Bernstein Crisis Management. Jonathan, thanks for joining us this evening.
I'm pleased to be here, Michelle.
So, Jonathan, given that there have been all of these major concerns over security and terrorism attacks, do you think that most of the sponsors have prepared in advance for worst-case scenarios at the Olympics?
Well, I mean, following the Boston Marathon bombing in particular, combined with the threats that have been in existence for a while in Russia, I'm sure they've all prepared to some degree, but I'll bet that most of them haven't prepared adequately.
So what should they be doing? What would adequate preparation involve?
Well, it's one thing to have contingency advertising in place, but the public focus changes to one of horror and pain and despair and anger in the wake of an act of terrorism. And they need to be prepared not just to have alternate advertising, but to communicate differently on social media, to have spokespersons ready to go to say appropriate things without sounding as if they're trying to sell product in the course of events, which has happened actually after the Boston Marathon bombings, where some advertisers were criticized for apparently using the event to sell more product.
So you say that they should have an alternative commercial ready to go in case of some horrific situation, like a plan B that you air that emphasizes sensitivity, if you will?
Yes, emphasizes compassion for the victims and support for their families, and that's it. And their name is associated with that ad, so it reflects very well on the company, but it doesn't sell product at all.
Well, so far, thankfully, there have been no security issues or terrorism attacks, but there has been some major backlash against sponsors regarding Russia's anti-gay position. One of the biggest sponsors, McDonald's, saw protesters picket some of its locations around the world because of the anti-gay laws. Another high-profile sponsor, CocaCola, protesters also reportedly poured Coke into the sewers right here in Times Square in protest. So how do you think these two sponsors have managed the anti-gay law crisis?
Well, I think some better than others. What the message they need to get across is that they're not sponsoring the Olympics, they're sponsoring our athletes, and they're supporting American athletes. And so if people think that the money is going to Russia, I can understand them being angry. I don't think people understand the difference, so it's up to the advertisers to make that difference clear, which to one degree or another they have done. You know, there's always going to be three audiences in this kind of situation: the people who are going to be your friends no matter what, the people who are going to be your critics no matter what, and the vast majority are the fence sitters. If they can't please a few critics, it's not a big deal.
But given the position, a lot of people will say, well, that they're sort of guilty by association. And in fact, last week, the CEOs of some of the sponsors received a letter from the human rights advocacy organization and 40 LGBT groups saying that they have to raise their voices in opposition to Russia's anti-LGBT laws and promote equality through available marketing channels. Now, they haven't really done that. AT&T, the first U.S. company with Olympic ties, issued a statement saying we support LGBT equality globally and we condemn violence. The others, DeVry University and Chobani Yogurt, kind of came out with something, but so far nothing really dramatic. Has this been a missed opportunity for them?
I think it has, because essentially they're saying they're against the rights of others if they don't speak out in favor of.
So given all of these controversies, is the Sochi Winter Games still an event that a sponsor actually wants to be associated with? Is there an upside that outweighs all the negativity and costs, in your opinion?
Well, I'm not an advertising expert per se, but I can say in terms of a reputation of a brand, how they manage not just their advertising, but how they manage their response to social situations is going to have a significant impact on them, for better or for worse. And I think they are, as you say, missing out on a lot of opportunities. There's no such thing as non-communication. When they don't raise their voice, then they're signing off on the negative messages.
All right, very quickly, focusing now on the next games. In Brazil, there have been a lot of issues there, especially in preparation for the World Cup. Is that going to deter sponsors from the 2016 games in Rio?
I'm sure they're watching Brazil very carefully, but in the volatile global environment we have now, with terrorism being virtually worldwide, I think sponsors have to be alert worldwide, not just in Brazil, for the risk inherent in any particular event.